Everyone. This is Brian Sek here. Thanks for joining today's webinar, where we'll be talking about setting up Desk.com. Let's move on to some introductions. So once again, my name is Brian Sek. I'm the onboarding and training specialist here at Desk, and I create content for our new customers to learn Desk. And I have here with me today Barbara. Barbara, do you want to give a brief introduction of yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Brian. Hi, everybody. My name is Barb Tassa. I'm one of the customer success managers here at Desk.com. And what I do is I help people be successful, whether they're getting implementation package or just learning Desk and trying to navigate it on their own.
All right. Thanks, Barb. Before we begin, let's go over just some housekeeping items. So today's training portion of the webinar will be just about 40 to 45 minutes. We'll be going a lot of content, but if you do have questions during the training, feel free to type those into the GoToWebinar questions panel, and we'll try to get as many questions as we can answered. And if we do see that some of those questions might be helpful for the Q&A session at the end, we may save those for the last 15 minutes of the session. Also, if you can't stay with us for the entire time, or if you maybe want to watch the recording at a later time, while you set up your own Desk site, we will email the recording to you, so watch out for the email as well. So without further ado, let's go and get started. I'll hand it over to Barb, and she'll take you through the training portion.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. So for the past year, I've been working with our Desk customers to get their support processes streamlined and configured in Desk. I know most of you have recently purchased Desk, and you probably have some questions on how to make it work for your team. So that's exactly what we'll be covering today. I'll take you through our setup journey and address some common configuration questions as well. So in terms of a specific agenda, first we'll talk about key business questions that you should be thinking about with your team before you start setting up Desk. Then we'll walk through a demo setup for a bike shop. I'll discuss some more advanced features that may be interesting for your team to explore at a later stage. Then we'll talk about everything we talked about, give a bit of a summary, and I'll provide you with some next steps and point you to some of the great resources that we have available. And we'll hopefully have plenty of time for questions and answers. So I definitely want you guys to feel comfortable asking anything about Desk, regardless of what stage of the setup process you are at right now. So as you've probably noticed, if you've already started playing around with Desk, it is very configurable. So when you start working through the setup, consider what kind of experience you want to provide to your end customers. You may want to launch with a basic setup that allows you to quickly answer only email inquiries, for instance. I think of this as the getting started A to B version, so it's pretty basic, but it gets you on the road really quickly. Also, you may be thinking about advanced features, so maybe you want to take the time to customize Desk before you start working with your customers. In this version, for instance, you could potentially have a full support center enabled. You could be supporting multiple social media channels to respond to customer inquiries. So that setup fidelity choice is really up to you. Today, for this webinar, I'll be focusing on that A to B version. Now, before I start setting anybody up with Desk, I usually try to have some time to take a step back and reflect on the business, what your customers are like and what their needs are. And so I typically start with these 5 questions. First, what types of customers do you have? Second, why do your customers contact you? Third, what methods or channels do your customers use to contact you? Fourth, how many inquiries do you get each day, and who's really responsible for handling those inquiries? And lastly, what are your key pain points or problems that you're looking to solve? So let's say that I run a local bike shop called Bay Cycles. As an example, I'm going to walk through these 5 questions for this business. I have 2 types of customers, cyclists who buy my products and vendors who supply my shop. And the main problem that I'm facing at this business is a lack of visibility into why customers are contacting us. I also have no way to provide real data or reports about our support activities to upper management. So it's a bit of a confusing cycle for us. So if I take these questions to my team, I'll probably discover some good information from them. So cyclists, for instance, we've learned that they contact us for 3 main reasons: to inquire about bike sales, service, and events. The bikes they usually inquire about are cruisers, commuters, and road bikes. And they also ask about the events that we host, which are Friday fun rides, monthly 20K rides, and annual races. Most of the cyclists are contacting us by phone and email. They have a dedicated email address, which is basecycles101@gmail.com, and most of these inquiries are handled by our staff. I also think about the vendors that supply our shop as customers as well. Vendors contact us about new products, orders, and promotions. And I do think it's important for us to respond to them in a timely fashion. So I'm going to plan on tracking their inquiries in Desk as well. Most of the vendors are emailing us or calling us. Likewise, they have a dedicated email address, which is basecycles101+vendors@gmail.com. And for now, most of these vendor inquiries are handled by the management team. So now, based on this overview of my bike business, the stakeholders, the reasons they contact us, what I'm going to do next is create a data model that I can then take and configure in Desk. So let's see how this would work. If the cyclist were to contact us, they may ask about that upcoming Friday fun ride. So I want to capture the contact reason and the specific event type. If a vendor contacts us, they may be wanting to tell us about a new promotion they're having on Mission bikes, featuring the Revalencia model specifically. So when I look at all of this, this is basically the data that I want to be able to capture whenever somebody contacts us. Now, before I move forward, I just want to highlight one thing. Everything that's highlighted in blue, the customer type, contact reason, event type, manufacturer, bike model, and bike type, these are the main categories that we want to track. And in Desk, we're going to store them in what are called custom fields. So we'll talk about that a little bit, but I just did want to point that out. Now let's look at how the system actually works. What's the bird's eye view here? So when a customer like Josh sends me an email, Desk enables me to process that email based on its unique attributes. So by unique attributes, I mean things like who the sender is, what the recipient email address is, what the subject line or body of that email are, and anything that's unique about that particular email. So with these unique attributes, I can configure Desk to take certain actions using the rules engine. One example of that could be assigning it to a specific agent based on who it's going to, like we're going to do in a little bit with our cyclist. So if Emily, for example, was one of my staff members, I want her to handle most of my cyclist emails, so I'll directly assign cases to her from customers like Josh. So for Emily, when she starts handling the case, I wanted to make sure she captures information like contact reason in the custom field for all cases, so that way we can keep track of all of our customer inquiry trends. And then when Emily replies back out to Josh, she can type her answer in manually or use what are called macros or pre-canned messages that can help her speed up her reply for frequently asked questions. Then when Desk actually sends that email back out to Josh, it will apply a look and feel based on a specific email reply template that you can modify directly. Okay, so now that I'm prepared with my data model, as well as an overview of how Desk works, let's talk about the specific things I actually need to do to get set up with, for this particular bike shop. So what I've done is I've prepared a list of 10 things that I need to do to set up Desk. Let's go through these now. In step 1, I really want to keep my implementation very simple. So for the time being, I'm only going to enable the email channel. If at a later time I'm ready and I want to capture other channels like phone or social channels, I can definitely do that. But for now, I'll just leave that off. In step 2, based on those business needs we talked about, I'll take the categories like customer type and contact reason and create custom fields so my team can really easily capture this information on cases. In step 3, I'm going to create a group and add a colleague into Desk so I can have a partner to help test and configure Desk with. In step 4, I'm going to leverage Desk automation by creating an inbound rule to correctly route the vendor and cyclist emails to my management and staff teams respectively. In step 5, I'm going to customize the inbox view for my team and clearly show which cases are coming from vendors and which are coming from cyclists. And how I do that is by configuring what are called filters. In step 6, I'm going to turn on the auto acknowledgement rule. And just for context, an auto acknowledgement is the immediate response Desk sends out to your customers that are contacting you so they know that you've received their inquiry. In step 7, I'm going to create a macro, which is the canned message for common questions. In step 8, I'll turn on Desk email notifications for new interactions. So that way, if my staff don't have the Desk application open, they'll at least get an email reminding them that they have a new case coming in. Step 9, pretty important, is the testing phase. So whenever I build any kind of Desk site, I always do a lot of testing to make sure that the rules that I've set up are correctly routing cases. And then finally, once I'm done my testing and I'm comfortable, I can add my remaining team and then connect my real support email address to Desk. And we'll talk about the different ways that you can do that as well. Okay, so at this point, we're going to jump into Desk and start seeing what that looks like. So as an administrator on my site, I have the ability to access all parts of my application for my bike shop. So I can change anything here on the admin side related to case management. I can change the general site-wide settings from this gear icon. Those are things like renaming the company's site, just doing a lot more site-wide changes. And then, of course, I have access to the agent inbox as well. So when you first go into Desk, you'll probably see a few sample cases. You'll see some filters on the left-hand side. So nothing has really been configured at this point, and this is the standard view. Then when I open a case, what I see are some common fields like status, priority group, and agent. These are the desk fields. And then if you create any custom fields, you will see them below here. So we're going to create some of those custom fields in a little bit from now. So let's go back into the admin site. Okay, so in step number 1, what we're going to do is make sure that only our email channel is turned on. We have a few different areas to check first. So we have the support center, email, chat, phone, Twitter, and Facebook channels. So for now, I'm going to just make sure that everything except for email is turned on. So how I do that is I'll go into the advanced settings for each of the options, and I'll just make sure that this is going to be turned off. But email is, so if this will be the on version, and this will be the off version. So right now the support center is off. Email, let's just make sure that's on. I see that's enabled. This is my general support email address that comes out of the box with Desk, and you can actually provide this to your customers if you don't have any other support email addresses that you already use. Chat, advanced settings, so I see I've already disabled chat. Phone, I've disabled phone. Twitter, advanced settings, that's disabled. Facebook, advanced settings, and that's disabled as well. And so how I can check to make sure that no other social channel is available right now, I can go back into the cases. This plus button will allow me to create a new case. And if I only see the email, that means that I've turned off all of the other social media channels. Okay, so now only email is enabled, which is great. So now we can go on to step 2, creating custom fields. So when I navigate to cases, I see a lot of options here, and this is where you'll be spending most of your time when you do configure Desk. So for now, we're going to go into the cases area, and we're going to click on custom fields. So custom fields are those categories that I really care about capturing for my site. And what I would do is I would just click add a field, and when I do that, I'll just call this testing for now. I'm going to choose a list type. So a list type is probably the most common custom field that you're going to choose, and then you can add as many options as you want into the drop down below. When I click add, it's going to add it to my list of custom fields. So at this point, just to save some typing, I've actually created the custom fields that I need based on my data model already. So what I've created is a customer type to capture the site lists and vendors. I've created the contact reason, which is all of the reasons that my customers will be contacting us, from events, service, bike, new products, order confirmations, and promotions. I'm going to capture the bike type that my customers are going to be asking about, and I'll just turn these on as well. So those are all of the custom fields that we were curious about. And so just to make sure that when you create a custom field that it appears, you can go back into Desk, hit refresh, and when you create the custom field, it will be added to the case layout on the right-hand side. So I can see all of these custom fields: customer type, contact reason, event type, manufacturer, bike model, and bike type. So those are all of the things I want to capture for my cases. Now, when you create your custom fields, they may not be in the exact order that you want them to be, but that's actually really easy to change. So what we do is we go back into the admin, cases, and then now we'll click on what are called next-gen case layouts. So next-gen case layouts allow you to create multiple layouts for different team members. So I've already created one here called staff, or my general staff. And let's say I want to create a separate one for the management team. So I create the layout, I give it a name, I see the desk standard fields here, and then I can also see the custom fields that I've created. If I want to show those on a particular on the layout, what I would do is just drag them onto the layout. So let's say customer type. So this is, actually I'm not going to put event type. I'll put contact reason, bike model, and these are pretty much most of the custom fields that I want management to see. I'm going to make these full width so they appear easier to read on my case layout. Okay, so I'm almost done. So I can drag and drop any of these around if I don't like the order. I can remove them. It's definitely up to me. Now, the other thing I have to remember is case layouts need to be assigned to specific individuals. So I'm just going to assign this to myself so I can see what this looks like. I assigned it myself, and I'm going to click Add. The next time when I log in, and I'll do a quick refresh, what I should see is custom fields that are related to my specific layout as management. And I can see now on the right-hand side that I no longer have the description field, and I have the fields that I dragged in, like customer type, contact reason, manufacturer, and bike model. So what I've essentially done is created the ability to have slightly different views for my different teams, if I need that. If you no longer need one of the particular custom field layouts, you can actually just turn it off and then make sure you're reassigning people to the one that you're going to use. So that way they'll see those particular custom fields. And that's how you use next-gen case layouts. Okay, so next what we're going to do is add some team members and add a group. So groups are a great way to help us organize who gets assigned certain cases. Out of the box, you're going to see two groups. One is called general, one is called supervisor. For my team, I'm just going to add a staff group, and I'm going to add a management group. For the staff, I will create a new user. So let's add Brian in here. And I'm going to add him to the staff team. The role allows you to select what permission sets your users are going to have. If you're adding users that are just going to be working on the cases themselves and you don't want them to have the ability to manage anything in the admin panel, you can just create them as a reporting agent or an agent. Billing administrator, all of those user roles will have access to this administrator area that I'm in right now. Okay. So now I've added Brian as a user. I'm also going to just double check that he was added to the staff group. So I click on that, and yep, I see Brian is now part of my staff team. Great, so now that I've set up my first user who's going to help me test, the next thing I want to do is make sure that I can easily separate cyclist and vendor emails. And how I'm going to do that is by creating what's called an inbound rule from the rules engine that allows me to look at a specific attribute and then send the email to to essentially do something. So let's walk through how that looks. When you first click on the rules engine, you will see a lot of options, and these options are relating to the type of event it is. For anything that's coming into Desk for the first time or any time after that, you want to create rules around the inbound interaction section. So that's what I'll do for now. So I'm only going to look at this as the email rule because I don't want this to apply to any other cases in the future. So what I'll do first is assign cyclist emails. Okay, what we're looking at now is the rules engine itself. I have some conditions and I have some rule actions. Conditions allow you to pick up on specific attributes, and then rule actions will tell Desk what you want to do when a case meets certain criteria. So how I would do this, assigning cyclist emails for now, I only want to do this one time when the case status is new. So I'm going to look for the attribute that says case status is new, meaning it came in for the first time, and in Desk, a case can be new only one time, when it first comes in and nobody's opened it before. If you email back and forth for the customer, it will come in as an open ticket, but it can never be new once somebody's opened it. The second set of conditions I want to look for are which email address my customer emailed. So I'm going to look at the email to, as well as the email CC line, just in case they have a habit of emailing that particular copy line. And I'll put, say, cycles. So this is my general email that I give to my cyclist. So now what this is saying is look at cases that are new and have one of the following two options. Email to contains base cycles or email CC contains base cycles. The rule action that I want to take is to assign that particular email to an email source. So I can set the email source as cyclist. So I have a custom field called email source that I created, and I'm going to assign it here, basecycles101@gmail.com. I'm going to enable this rule, which means that it will run the next time a case meets this particular criteria. Now that I've actually assigned it to a specific email address, if a case does come in, I want to also show it in a specific filter. So to do that, I'll go up to Filters. I'll create a new filter called Cyclist Emails. And a filter set kind of looks like the rules engine where I have the all and any conditions, but what you'll notice is missing is the rule actions. So there's nothing a filter actually does, it just surfaces certain cases that meet a criteria. And in this case, all I'm looking for is cases that have the email source is basecycles101@gmail.com. I can also change the default sort. Perhaps I want to see when they were received so that the latest email is always at the top. I'll enable this filter right now and make the permission visible to everybody. Later on, once I have my users in there, I may want to just restrict this to my staff. But for now, I'll just update it, and let's see how that looks in Desk. I go back to the inbox, and I see I have a new filter called Cyclist Emails. So I'll do the exact same thing for my vendor emails. Copy this rule since it's very similar. I'm only going to change a few attributes. I'll call this assign vendor emails. Likewise, I only want this to run one time when the case is new, but I want to look at a different email address that they're emailing. So my vendor email was basecycles101plusvendors@gmail.com. And I'm going to have a different rule action, which is to set the case email source to basecycles101. I'm going to hit enable, update, then go back up to filters. I'm going to duplicate this filter because it's pretty similar, and then modify it to show vendor emails. Change the email source to basecycles101plusvendors@gmail.com. I'm going to keep that default sort that I created previously by receive date, enable it, and hit update. So now when I go back into the inbox, now I see both the cyclist as well as the vendor email filters. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is enable the auto acknowledgement on step 6. So the auto acknowledgement, as a reminder, is the notification that a customer gets automatically from Desk when they've sent you an email. And Desk actually provides this rule out of the box. It's already created for you, so all you have to do is turn it on. But before I do that, let's read what this actually does. So this rule says that if the case status is new and hours since the last auto acknowledgement are greater than or equal to 24, then send email auto acknowledgement that is a system default theme. So what this rule essentially is telling me is that we've created an email template called the auto acknowledgement that has a specific default theme. We're only going to send it to cases that are in the new status, and they have not recently, in the last 24 hours, received an auto acknowledgement from us. That helps prevent email wars if there is an out-of-office responder on from a customer. So that way, they'll just get that one auto acknowledgement. I'm going to turn this on and hit update. So the next thing I want to do is set up a macro for my team. So initially, when I talked about the bike shop staff, I mentioned that customers often are emailing about the events that we host. And one of the most common events that we have is the fun ride on Friday night. I've already created this for us, so I'll just go through what I did. The name, I give it a name that's really easy for people to look for, and I add what's called a quick reply. So a quick reply is actually text that's going to be entered into the reply area of a case, and I can write a specific message, I can add hyperlinks, and I can also dynamically pull the customer name from the database with what are called liquid variables. Anytime you see these two curly braces on either side of a specific term, like customer.first_name, what that means is Desk is looking into the database to see what your customer's first name is, and is going to populate that customer's first name. There's a big article that I've included in the notes for this webinar about liquid variables. So just know that this is probably the most common one, but there are lots of other attributes that you can also pull dynamically in Desk. If you're familiar with mail merge, it's kind of like mail merge, same type of principles apply. Okay, so besides just adding a canned response, what's really cool about macros is that they can help your staff fill out all of the information that you want. So as I mentioned earlier, it's really important for me to get the customer type as well as the contact reason recorded. And this is that custom field that I created previously. So I have the cyclist and vendor option, and in terms of the contact reason, it's an event. Since I know the specific event is Friday Funrise, I can actually then set the third custom field where it's the event type and it's Friday Funrise. I'm going to enable this macro for all users and then hit update. Okay, so let's see how that would look. So if I get I'm going to hit refresh quickly again to make sure all the changes have been saved. So if I were to reply back and I use the macro, I can just access it from below the reply area. I'll hit cyclist event, Friday night fun ride. What I get is the reply area is filled out with that message. In this particular case, Desk has saved the word "the" as this customer's first name, which in this case, of course, is not correct. But just so you know, that is what it's looking at. And then I can see that on the right-hand side, my custom fields have actually been set automatically to cyclist, contact reason is event, and the event type is Friday Funrise. If I send this message out, the customer essentially will see this information that's in the reply area. I'm just going to close out of that for now, and I'm going to close without updating. So one more thing we're going to do before we send in a few test cases is we're going to enable notifications for new cases. Notifications, as I mentioned, just send your agents an email if there is a new case that's come in. If they don't have the Desk application open and you don't want them to miss it, you can actually just enable this rule called New Interaction Notification. It's already created for you in Desk, and all it does is just sends a notification anytime you have a new case come in or a new email come in, if it's the first time or the customer has just replied back. So let's turn this on, and that's it. All right, so now it's time to test. I do want to actually say that I want this to be interactive, so if you guys are interested, you're more than welcome to actually send me an email, and then we can see these test cases. So right now, my general support email is support@zzz-basecycles1.desk-mail.com, and I believe that Brian has actually put it into the chat window for this GoToWebinar. So if you just copy this email address and you send me an email from your email, we can see these cases come into Desk. And let's see what happens. So I'll just hit refresh quickly. All right, so we got a first email coming in from Brian. So I can see that he emailed support@zzz-basecycles1.desk-mail.com. And if any of you are also thinking of emailing, give it a try, because if you do email in, you'll get one of those auto acknowledgments that we just set up. So that way you can see, excuse me, from the customer's perspective, what that auto acknowledgement would look like. So again, that email address is support@zzz-basecycles1.desk-mail.com. So feel free to do it now or later on. It's totally up to you. So one of the things I just want to mention within our filters, thanks for sending in the test emails, guys. So I'll actually send you back the reply that we just created. So we use the macro, and I can use a shortcut with double hash, and I can see cyclist fun ride, and I'll update send and resolve. I'll do that. And let's do that here as well. All right, thanks for sending those guys in. All right, one more. Okay, so you guys can also see that it's always setting the custom fields here as well. I'm not going to just send update and resolve this one. I'll just hit send an update so you can see the difference in the inbox as well. All right, so what happens when I reply out, my case status actually changes as well. So if you look at your inbox and you're wondering why the colors are different, just so you know, the solid blue is a new email. The blue that's not filled in is an open case, meaning I've clicked on it. And anything that's purple means it's pending, so it's actually going out to you guys, so it's waiting your reply. and I can see anything that's sort of in the sending stage in the outbox in my email here. Okay, so just a quick question. You guys may have been wondering why I got an email in the inbox and not in the cyclist and vendor emails that I created. And the reason is that I have not set up a rule to look at specifically the support email address that's provided out of the box. So support as UVV base cycles 1. I didn't say to Desk that, hey, if somebody emails here, then assign it to either the cyclist or vendor email sources. So if you also want to test that out, what you can do is actually use the vendor or the cyclist email address, and what we'll see is it's going to go into the cyclist email or vendor email box. So Brian, maybe if you have a chance, you can send one to base cycles 101. Actually, hold on a second. If you can put that on the copy line, that may, I'll have to actually set it up, but it won't happen until I actually connect my email address. So what we'll do is, the next thing we're going to talk about is connecting your email address. So when you are ready, you've tested everything out with a colleague and you're comfortable sending your real emails to Desk, you have 3 things that you can do. So number 1, you can of course use this specific support email address. So that's totally fine. It's a live email as you guys just tested out. The second thing that you can do is you can add your mailbox through the IMAP connection. So that will basically pull your emails in about every 15 minutes. And the last thing that you can do is actually do what's called email forwarding. And there's a really handy guide when you go to your dashboard and you set up email forwarding here. So the reason we actually recommend email forwarding is it's a faster way for you to get your cases into Desk. When I go through this setup wizard, it essentially is going to take me back into my Gmail, and I'll do what's called forwarding to the to Postmark, which is how Desk gets mail in here. And it's still going to look the same to your customers. They're going to email your normal support email addresses, but Gmail or Outlook or whatever other provider you use will just forward those emails into Desk. And it's a little bit faster, so usually emails are pretty instant when you email from there. And it's going to take you through this. So I'm not going to connect my email right now, but just know it probably will take less than 5 minutes for you to connect your email. And then when you've connected your email address, when customers actually send you emails to your support email address, they'll come into Desk, and any of those inbound rules that you've created, like in my case, assigning to cyclist emails and vendor emails, these rules will run properly because this will actually be in the to or copy lines of the emails. So that actually covers the majority of our Desk setup for the A to B version. And once you've done this with your team, you've tested it out, you're probably going to start wondering, okay, well, what's next? What else can I do in Desk? So let's talk about some of the advanced setup options. Previously, we talked about Josh. When he contacted us, he sent us an email directly to our support email address. But what I can also do is have Josh go to a support center that I set up, where I have articles that I've created that may actually answer his questions without Josh emailing me directly. The support center also has a contact form that when Josh fills that out, it sends and creates a case into Desk. The cool thing about contact forms on the Desk site is you can actually add any of those categories or custom fields that you want to have filled out provided by Josh or whoever is emailing you. So that way your cases are categorized when they come in from your support site. Support sites are generally really helpful if you have hundreds, thousands, millions of customers and you're just not manually able to handle all of their inquiries. You can put all your frequently asked questions on there and any other guides that your customers will need. Likewise, we talked about the auto acknowledgement. It also gets sent out when they send a case in from the support center, and you can customize that auto acknowledgement as much as you want, so that way your customers have a very consistent branding experience regardless of which touch point they choose. And then lastly, when a Desk case does come in, regardless if it's from the email or support center, if my staff member Emily is interacting with Josh and they have a bunch of back and forth, We can also enable a feature called CSAT, or the Customer Satisfaction Survey. So that helps me capture the sentiment and get feedback from my customers how we're providing support. CSAT is pretty awesome. You can have it with every resolution, with just one resolution of a case, and you can see it when customers reply in, what their last CSAT was. You can see it in reporting. It's a really great way to keep a pulse of your customers. If you're wondering how to set it up, I'll just jump back into the admin and show you. It's in cases, and down the bottom of the list, you'll see customer satisfaction. It's just a simple on or off that you can toggle. You can choose if you want 2 or 4 smiley faces. You can change the question, and if you want additional feedback, you can have a second question as well that your customers fill out. Once you've enabled this, it will just be surfaced in the reply themes that that are being sent out of Desk. So there's no other configuration that you need to do, which is really nice. All right, so let's recap what we've covered today. First, we've reflected on our business. We talked about 5 key questions that we should be thinking about, and this helped us create that data model and the information that we really want to capture on cases. Second, we assigned cases to specific groups. We added agents. We created some rules and macros to help us be more productive. We sent some test cases into Desk, and we started to talk more about what are the next steps, or what are the things like support centers that we can further customize Desk when we're ready. In terms of next steps, after this webinar, we'll send you this PowerPoint so you actually have the list of things that you can do to set up Desk, the reason you may want to consider implementing it, and as well we have a Desk article link from our support center that will provide you with additional details as well if you want that. Here are some insight into the advanced setup as well. So if you guys are thinking about changing some site settings or agent settings, creating more customized teams, advanced rules, or support center, there's a lot of information and articles here as well that can help you get started to think about what are the options you can have with your Desk setup. And as well, training resources and support. So if you go to support.desk.com, you'll see tons of support articles. We have a video support center that you can see recorded webinars, as well as really quick videos on how to set up certain modules in Desk. And as well, I do invite you to check out some other customer support sites to get inspired and see what kind of things you can do. If you need additional help, of course, we have our great Desk support team. They're available by email or phone, so feel free to contact them. They're really helpful, and that way we don't want you to get stuck, so feel free to contact us if you have any more questions. So before you guys launch, I did want to open this up to any questions that you have. So we'll go and do that now.
All right, thanks, Barb. So again, if you do have any questions right now, feel free to type those into the GoToWebinar questions panel. We do thank you for the questions that have been coming in for the training. Looks like we do have one good question here that we want to share with you guys. Let's see here. Some of our agents aren't filling out all the fields we want to capture. How do I make a field required for our agents?
Thanks for reading that, Brian. So yeah, that's a really common question that I get. And so basically what that refers to is you go back into your cases on any of the cases that you have. These are the custom fields. And if you want, for reporting purposes, to always know, 50% of our cases are coming from cyclists, in order to capture that number, this custom field has to be filled out. Otherwise, we just won't have the data to later run reports. So how we would do that is actually using a rules engine. There's not an exact required field option in Desk, but how we simulate that is through what's called essentially the case resolve rule. So in my rule, what I will do is, let's see, customer type required. I'll create a new rule that says when an agent has tried to resolve a case, so they've set a case status to resolve, and the custom field called customer type is blank. So let's see where that is, case customer type. If this is blank, so I'm not going to choose any of these, I'll just leave this open. What I want my rule action to be is to set that case back to open. So I'm looking for a set case status to open. And I'm going to do what's called appending a label. So I'm adding a label to a case. And this allows me to provide a bit more of a message to the customer. So I can say, or my agent, so I can say customer type required. Now when I turn this rule on, what's going to happen is every time I have an agent that tries to resolve a case but it does not have that particular field filled out, it's going to set that case status to open and then append that label. So that's how you would actually make sure that your data is complete when your team is trying to resolve cases. But otherwise, you can do that for all of the custom fields that you want to have reporting capability on. So it's a pretty handy little trick. Let's just see how that works. So what I'm going to do is not select the customer type, and I'm going to, let's see, try to resolve the case. So there we go, the rule just ran. I got that label that says customer type required. So the status is also still open. Now if I actually fill that out, cyclist, and I do update and resolve, now the case actually is resolved. And I can either write a second rule that will remove that label, or if I'm not bothered by it, I can just keep that label on the case. But now I know that 100% of the time, when my agents are trying to resolve a case, this is going to be filled out before they can actually change the status to resolved. It's a great question.
All right. Thanks, Barb. Looks like we have another question. Is there a training video on how to manually create new cases? I believe there is. Maybe, Barb, can you go to the support center?
Absolutely.
And then let's check out where that video would be. And then she's going to navigate to the video support center here. And then under getting started, I believe, it's the admin admin 104. And this is a training for the agents that walks them through kind of what all the icons in the admin area are and how to create new cases and kind of the basics of case management. So this is a great video for you to check out. But to answer the question, maybe we can do that right here.
Yeah.
Barb, maybe you can enable the phone channel and then just show how to create a new case really quickly.
Absolutely. So how I would do that is I go back to admin, I would click on channels. So channels are all the things that I can turn on or off. In this case, I'm going to turn on the phone channel. I'm click on, hit update. And now when I go back into Desk, I'm just going to do a quick refresh of the screen. When I manually create a case from this plus button, and just to answer the simple question of how to create a case manually, it's with this plus button here. So your agents can click that, and they'll see the specific channel. So phone type, which is what we just enabled, or the email type. So if I click on the phone type, I do actually have to enter a customer name in order to create a case. So let's see if Brian is in the system. So anybody that's emailed me previously, I can create a case for. I can look it up by their name, their email address, or a phone number even. I'll select my customer and then hit create a case. In this case, I created the phone case. So instead of seeing a reply area, I see a log call area.
All right, thanks, Barb. Looks like we have another question. I want to create subcategories for our product types so we can track what questions are coming in. How can I do this?
Yeah, absolutely. So subcategories I've sort of created already here in terms of customer type, contact reason, and event type. So contact reason and event type are probably the most closely linked in the sense that, you know, when somebody chooses the event contact reason, I may not actually want to just show all of the options. I may only want to show the specific events that I have. So in order to do that, I go back into my custom fields area. I go to cases. I go to the cases section here, and I go to dependencies. So dependencies are a really great way to say, to tie in logic to your custom fields. So let's see how that would work. So if my controlling field is contact reason, and let's see, actually I'm going to do, in terms of, yes, I'll do events, so contact reason, and then, let's see, event type. No, yes, I'm thinking about that. I think that works. So let's see how that works. So if the contact reason was event, the next one I want to see is just these particular options. I don't want to show anything else for that particular custom field. So I'll hit save, turn it on. Actually, hold on, I'm going to do it the other way. It's a little bit easier. Let's try this. And add the dependency for the type and the contact reason, because my cyclists and vendors have a very different reason for contacting me. So if a cyclist contacts me, I know that they're contacting me about events, service, or bike sales. And if a vendor contacts me, they're asking me about new products, order confirmations, and promotions. There is no reason for my agents to see all of these options, so I can actually just limit what choice they have. So now when I turn that on, and I go back into the case, I'll hit refresh so it takes effect. So now if I choose the customer type as cyclist, the contact reasons I have available are only event, service, and bike sales. If I then change that customer type to vendor, my contact reason options are now new products, order confirmations, and promotions. So that's basically a way to clearly link your categories and subcategories in a logical way if you have a lot of different customers or customer types or contact reasons, and you want them to be logically flowing top down, so there's no mistaken selection.
All right, thanks, Bart. It looks like that's actually all the questions that we have.